Good morning, Maniacs. Hey, I want to talk to you today a little bit about accountability. I was asked to do this for your Airman Development Summit. I know I've been following along your Airman Development Summit with great interest. Some of the thought and effort that you guys are putting into your answers within this summit really get me thinking as well. So I appreciate everybody that's putting the effort into this. And of course, this week, you're talking about accountability, and that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about. I've been looking at a lot of your answers, and I agree with everything that you guys have put on there as far as accountability. Accountability is kind of a new term. What does it really mean? I've asked airmen that before because accountability is huge, right? If we don't have accountability, it has a huge effect on our mission, and it has a huge effect on our relationships. Accountability helps us build, like Chief Moore used to say, helps us build kind of a trust bank. And as we become accountable, we're known more and more to others around us that, hey, we are accountable. And we develop a sort of trust bank for ourselves so that others kind of know that we know what we're talking about, we know that we're committed, and we're responsible. That helps in mission effectiveness in the long run for our organization. But accountability is a fairly new term, and the more I think about it, I think it's synonymous in many ways with a lot more ancient term that used to be used a lot more than it is today. I'd like to draw that distinction between accountability and the term honor, because in a lot of ways I think they're getting after the same thing, the same meaning. Honor used to be amongst the most sacred things, the highest virtues that anybody had. We don't really talk that way anymore. In fact, the last line of our Declaration of Independence states, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." If we draw a line between accountability and honor, those statements really kind of levy what it actually means. Accountability and honor is about fulfilling responsibilities. It's about committing to things, and once you commit, it's about doing the best that you possibly can to fulfill those commitments. Very similar to this Airman Development Summit, right? So a lot of the effort that I'm seeing from many of you, you committed to be in this Airman Development Summit, and you're fulfilling those responsibilities to the best that you can. You're being accountable to being in this year's summit by doing the best that you can and getting the most out of this. Accountability is a lot about respect. It's about respecting yourself and others, getting back to that trust bank. It's about being true to yourself and others. In another conversation, I could probably draw very clear connections between accountability and each of our Air Force core values. I think there's two types of accountability. You have accountability to yourself, and then you have accountability to others. And we could have a very deep philosophical discussion about which of those is most important. A lot of folks would argue that your accountability to others and those around you, it has to be more important, right? Because the potential there for the impact of accountability to others is huge, right? So in my civilian job as a game warden, if I'm not accountable to others, people could die. The same thing could be said, in the military. If we're not accountable to others and our teammates in battle, people will die. And that's about as impactful as it gets. But I'm going to argue to you today that I think accountability to yourself is probably more important, because if you can't be accountable to yourself and your responsibilities and your commitments, then you're certainly not going to be able to effectively be accountable to others around you. We're not born with accountability in our veins. We have to learn it. Many of us, and I'll speak for myself, right? I learned it at a very early age because my grandparents set very clear responsibilities, guidelines for me. And when I violated any of those, I was quickly corrected. So I learned to build accountability myself. I learned what was right, what was wrong. I learned what my responsibilities were. And I learned that if I committed to something, it was expected of me to do the very best that I could. And I think many of you grew up the same way, but we have to learn accountability and what it means. When it comes to accountability from leadership, in my position here at the wing, for example, I think it becomes extremely important. Leadership has to set the example. And if I'm not accountable for what I do every day here in this office, then that has an impact across the wing, and it has an impact on individual airmen, and it will have an impact on our total mission effectiveness. And more importantly, if I'm not accountable, then how can I expect you to be accountable? It becomes very important with leadership in any organization that leadership is accountable, and that follows through the entire organization. One last thing about accountability. We talk about accountability to ourselves being very important. I'd ask you to figure out and decide who you're accountable to. Your uniform gives you a lot of clues. Number one, if you're in this uniform, you're accountable to yourself. But who else are you accountable to? And the other clues on this uniform about who you're accountable to are right here. So being accountable and bringing it back to honor. If you're accountable to yourself, you have honor for yourself. If you're accountable to your family, you bring honor to your family. I'm accountable to the United States Air Force, the United States of America, right? So what I do in the profession of arms in this uniform, everything I do to bring honor with my accountability to the United States Air Force, the United States of America. And this little patch right here, right? And that's what we're known for. We're known for excellence. But it's also part of that excellence is because we hold ourselves accountable, we hold others around us accountable, and that's who I'm accountable to as well. These are just a few of my thoughts on accountability. I welcome any conversation about this. I hope you guys keep charging hard ahead. I thank the team that built this year's Airman Development Summit. I think you guys are doing a great job with what you have to work with COVID going on. You guys are doing a great job with this summit. For all the attendees, you're going to get what you put into this. So I encourage you, to keep putting that effort forward. And I hope you're realizing the benefit of this summit, some of these discussions that you're getting involved in, and how it's helping you grow. My door's always open. If I can help any of you, I'm out.